Moto One Podcast Network.
Hi, this is Ja Rule, and I love
Creative writing, baby.
Can we just go straight to pants shitting?
I don't care if you're 1%er or 99%er, y'all can kiss 100% of my ass.
two strokes are for white fucking trash.
Junky, you're awful. Humans suck.
Let's go!
You're listening to a show hosted by an idiot and a sarcastic robot.
That's me.
It features the opinions of that idiot and the opinions of guest motorcyclists from a large demographic with a varying array of skills, talent, and knowledge. Any of the words that you hear on this podcast may therefore be very idiotic, unlawful, and incorrect, or perhaps genius and insightful. Either way, they do not reflect the opinions or well thought out and completely fair policies of the Creative Riding Motorcycle Podcast or any of the podcasts under the Moto One Podcast Network umbrella.
Imagine it's summer. August 13th in Blindheim, Bavaria. You're in a field with hundreds of other soldiers. 3 battalions of infantry and 4 cavalry squads are at the ready under Captain General John Churchill. The enemy line is across the valley just beyond a small stream. And your target is the fortified village of Blenheim. During the night, Churchill had some scouts verify that the open plain between the two fronts was vacant from enemy traps or ambush points. The Franco-Bavarian troops under Field Marshal Camille de Tillard are stunned after Churchill undertook a night march to join his forces with the Imperial Army under the command of Field Marshal and Prince named Eugene of Savoy. Now the Allies sit within sight of the town, just outside the range of Tallard's howitzers, and you're preparing for engagement. Under Tallard's command, the enemy also has 2 separate heads. Tallard's troops in Blenheim and his assistant Marshal Ferdinand Marcin and Maximilian Emanuel in the neighboring villages to the west. With Prince Eugene's forces stretched along the 4-mile line to the northwest, Churchill has your battalion stretched along the north bank of the Danube, facing Blindheim on the eastern edge of the battlefield. All morning you have faced artillery fire from the town, and 4 separate attacks have all been repelled thus far. Churchill's infantry commander, Lord Cutts, faced a severe resistance from the village, and in the assault, you witnessed your cousin, Thomas Wilson, split in 2 while his fellow troops were shredded into bloody bits by grape shot. You'll never forget the sight of your cousin's upper body sailing to the ground with his innards flapping like a grotesque flag from his abdomen. And the whole time, his hands grasped tightly to his rifle. You're glad you couldn't see his face, but the grief is replaced by instant shock. The shock fortifies you and drives you forward. General Rowe was also killed in an assault, but not before stabbing his sword into the French defenses as he fell. Eugene's army is not doing much better on the right flank, but his pressure draws Tallard's troops from the village of Oberglau at the center of the battlefield. Finally, around lunchtime, Churchill mounts an attack. And although the Nebel stream and the marshy terrain makes moving your artillery very difficult, Churchill's troops are able to move a battery of guns into position and suppress the French commander's army just long enough to make a charge. This draws more troops from the center defenses, weakening the enemy's line. And by the afternoon, you are nearly deaf, and many of your friends in the 15th Regiment are dead or dying in the valley. But you yourself have seen several enemy troops drop or vanish in a cloud of red mist after you squeeze the trigger on your service weapon. Finally, as the evening closes in, Churchill leads his cavalry toward the collapsed center of the front. The enemy armies retreat, and the infantry rush toward the Danube River as your entire force swoops in, forcing them back on themselves. Churchill is successful in routing the enemy. Those within the village garrison are trapped by their own fortifications, and your regiment and several others give chase, leaping over the masses of dead and wounded men and horses as you pursue thousands of enemy infantry retreating into the Danube River. You continue to fire and plunge your bayonet into any enemy desperate enough to try and escape the frigid waters. Over 3,000 Franco-Bavarian soldiers are estimated to have drowned in the Danube River, while another estimated 17,000 died on the battlefield. And by nightfall, Marshal Camille de Tallard, 14,000 of his troops, and the town of Blenheim have all been captured. John Churchill, the Duke of Marlborough, went on to win several more battles and helped establish England as a major military force. 10 years after his victory in Blenheim in 1704, the War of Spanish Succession would wind down, resulting in many treatises between several nations in Europe and King Louis XIV of France. These treaties, known as the Peace of Utrecht, kept France from becoming the dominant force in Europe in the 1700s, and as a result, Britain became the economic powerhouse in the region, and the Peace of Utrecht directly influenced the Industrial Revolution. Stick around for the rest of the show when we talk about how the Treaty of Utrecht also inadvertently ruined it for motorcycles. But now, let's get into some creative writing, y'all. All right, everybody. Welcome. And welcome to Creative Writing. I am your host, Junk, and with me in the studio tonight is... I have a couple of people in here. I have Tobor, and it is very, very late in here, and we are going to try and get out of here pretty quickly. And Tobor, you're talking, but you're turned down. Let me do a quickie real quick right here. Actually, let's not do a quickie. Tobor, can you hang on just for 1 second while we try to get you mic'd up? I don't know what.
My smelly human companion.
Oh yes, there you are. So yeah, and you talked over that and I talked over that. I'm sorry. How are you doing, Tobor?
Hello, Junky. How are you doing?
I am fabulous. Is this the sound effects? Let me see. You keep talking. Say something. I don't know. Tell me a meme that you heard. You've been studying motorcycle memes.
I can ride for 2 hours straight. You ride for 2 hours gay. We are not the same.
You know what, Tobor? It's not funny online, and it's not funny when you say it either, but at least I know what channel you're coming in on now, so thank you for that. And we talked over the song. I made a new song for the opening of this show, inadvertently, and yeah, I really, I just, it's funny, because that was at 110 beats per minute, the slow version, and the fast version that just played us into the intro right here, 170 beats per minute. That should be like punk rock levels. And when I slowed it down to 90, it actually had more drum. It's like too complicated at these higher speeds to sound fast. And when you slow it down, they add all sorts of fills, and it actually sounds faster at a lower beats per minute. Does that make any sense? Does anybody care? I don't think anybody cares. And I'm also going to turn myself up a little bit. And also in the studio, we're here a little bit late. So full transparency, and not that anybody cares, but we're here a little bit late at the studio. My kids had stuff going on, and they needed to borrow my computer for something. And at this studio, it's a little bit different. I really love this studio because you bring your own stuff. You know what I'm saying? There's no weird, like, you don't have to get the logins for the computers and, worry about what you saved up there or what you had on the screen, and if somebody's going to come in and delete it and all your notes or whatever, things happen production-wise. I really like bringing in my own stuff, but like I said, the kids were really begging to use the computer for something earlier tonight, and so long story short, and not to bore anybody to death, we kind of had to reschedule coming in here, and it just so happens that we're in here, and it's right after the Tucker Tanner show, so we have, you want to say who else is in the studio with us tonight?
Yeah, man, it's Dick. I don't know if you can even hear me. I don't know if this mic is on, but yeah, man, it's Dick from Tucker Tanner Show.
Whoops, I guess I need to turn my mic up. Yeah, I had to turn down a little bit there. You're pretty quiet, but we can fix that. And so we have Dick Buttman here from the Tucker Tanner Show. He is the producer extraordinaire. And you do I like that show a lot. You guys do a really good job, in my opinion.
Mr. Tanner doesn't like you at all, man.
What do you mean he doesn't like me at all?
Well, he said you don't like know the difference between your a hat and your butt because you have them like both on your head all the time.
Junky, I like this guy.
What in the hell? You know, I know he talks crap to me in the halls. I had no idea he didn't like me like that, like this much.
Yeah, man, he really just does not respect you. One.
I have never agreed with a human being before as much as I agree with this bag of carbon and calcium. It is a dude, right?
Oh, man, yeah, I'm a dude.
Yes, Tobor's a dude. Well, you know what? I'm going to mute you and Tobor so we can actually get into the show. And I'll talk to Tanner later. You know what? Like, I have no problem with Wheelspin and it's like the most exclusive show on the Moto 1 podcast network. And there's no reason for him to be going around talking crap about everyone else. You know what I'm saying? We're all trying our best and we're all doing our best. Thanks for the insight, Dick. You can stick around and, we'll talk. We'll get into it in a little bit. But right now, let's just now that I'm thrown off a little bit, sorry, folks. Let's get into the show, and let's start off with the word of the week. And Tobor, since I muted you as well, but since you're in the booth and you're my producer, maybe you can throw us a little song up here for word of the week. How's that? God, man, what a human turd. Here, I'm always so nice to Tanner whenever I see him.
I know, man. He just really don't like you.
Whatever. I'll deal with it when I see him. This week's word of the week, folks. Well, before I get into it, let's say what it is. The word of the week is something that we do here at the show every week. And I've been trying to say it more because we have a box full of it's the box of shit, right? I'm down now. I'm sorry. I'm down. I'm always cool to Tucker Tanner. Now, the fact that I hear he's a chud, I'm going to be really upset. Anyways, so the word of the week goes like something like this. We have a box full of stuff. A box of junk, we're supposed to call it, because it fits my name. But it's really just a box of random shit from a studio that we have. And you could say it's a prize. If I say the word of the week, or anybody says the word of the week this week, write into the show, creativewritingpodcast@gmail.com. We'll send you some stickers, and we'll also send you something out of the box of junk. And right now, the last thing I saw in the box of junk was a puzzle. We have a new motorcycle puzzle up there. I do have a couple shirts, a couple shards. I don't know what I'm going to send. I'm going to reach in and grab something and throw it at you. I'm so upset right now. I'm sorry. But the word of the week becomes official when we make some sound effect. And I don't know, Tobor, I'm going to let you do the honors this week. The word of the week this week is extension. Extension. So if you hear me say that word after it becomes official, write into the show and let us know that you heard it. The word of the week becomes official right now. It's a nice little sound effect. Thank you, Tobor. Okay, well, let's get into the rest of the show here because it's going to take forever if we don't. Yeah, Dick, I took your mic offline. I don't know if anybody listens to this show. Listen, I'm not worried about it. I need to get into my show now. We're on a time limit. Thank you. All right, the word of the week we've got out of the way. Now let's get into this week's highs and lows. Why don't we? And I just had a low on air meltdown. Why don't we also play like one of the worst songs I ever wrote? Yeah, I hear it. There we go. It's not the worst, but it's one of the worst. So highs and lows, man. Let's get into it this week, and I will be positive. I promise. No more. I'm no more Mr. Negativity. You know me. You know I'm going to try and do better. So, yes, Tovar, I have you turned down too. God, you guys. All right. Highs and lows of this week. Here is my highs, because I cannot believe this. This is such an amazing thing. One of my highs, I had many this week. One of them is that Kayla Yakov, Daytona, she is the first woman ever on the podium at Daytona. She's only 18 years old. She is a phenom, and she's been making waves now since she was 16, I think, in the AMA racing. And if you haven't been paying attention, awesome. She's another. Sorry, I'm adjusting some studio equipment here after I kicked you out, Dick. No, I'm not calling you a dick. That's your name. Get out of here. Yeah. Anyway, Kayla Yakov, she's been coming up in the sport, making a name for herself. You know, Anna Carrasco, same sort of thing, but on a not an international level. And I kind of feel like Anna Carrasco's name has sort of fizzled out in a little bit, as things do in a male-dominated sport. So it's exciting to see Kayla Yakov here doing, reintroducing women into the eyes of the motorsports again. And she's only 18, and this she is just. I mean, I can't even tell you how many times she's been in AMA magazine, and to do something. I know I believe she famously said, I don't want to be the only woman on the podium. I want to be like the first of many or something like that. And I think that was her that said that. And I think that's awesome. You know what I'm saying? And yeah, so she's really looking out for more stuff to be coming from her as AMA gets underway and the racing gets hot this year. So, and I'm going to turn myself up a little bit. I feel like you guys were screwing with me earlier. Maybe I was just turning my mic up and down trying to hear. I couldn't hear Dick that good. Another high, Daytona Bike Week just happened, or just started last weekend, and lots of racing action, as you know, lots of stunt action, and lots of entertainment. And finally, I feel like our friends in the Midwest are getting a break from some of the crazy, crazy weather that they been experiencing. And yeah, another high. I'll call it a low. A high was there wasn't a low, but it was unfortunate. The Californian happened last weekend, and it was creepy, man. I'm gonna straight up tell you, when we were sitting here, the wind started to kick up, and I don't know if you remember this, but about 1 year and 2 months ago, to that day that California was on the 7th, I believe. Jan 7th is when those winds kicked up and kicked the shit out of Los Angeles and burned, half the county. What felt like half the county. So March 7th, the same thing happened. The wind, I could feel it that night. It was so weird. The winds picked up and kicked up, and I was like, and my power went out. My internet went out. Power stayed up, so that's good. We didn't have to read by the candlelight like they did in the old days. So I didn't even think about it, but I went to have a beer with Brady. Friday night. The power internet went out. Was that right? No. It was Saturday. That's right. So Saturday morning, my son had a baseball game, and I usually announce his baseball games. And so they had internet and everything was cool. And so I announced the game, and then I was like, oh crap, I won't be able to go to the motorcycle show because the game is happening unless I go super early. But when I had woke up that morning, and Friday night, the winds were insane. I knew the winds were crazy, but I didn't think of Brady's event. When I woke up Saturday, the first thing I thought of, because my backyard was tore up again, just like it was January 7th of last year, my backyard was just tore up. Trees everywhere. I went out with the saw real quick and cut some branches down so they didn't fall on the power lines in my house or on the internet lines in my house. And I was like, oh my God, Brady's event. Like people started loading in last night, you know what I'm saying? And so I texted Brady or called him and it went straight to voicemail. I knew he was busy and slammed. So make a long story short, because I don't want to make this segment go more than its allotted time. My high was that I got to talk to Brady that night after Winds had canceled the Californian. At around 5 o'clock in the morning, they got a call from their on-site friend that was managing it, and he said, hey, at 4 o'clock, everything was copacetic, which is crazy because at my house Friday night, shit was not copacetic. And I live like 10 minutes from where the show is, you know, and we're all in the same valley, so I don't know how it was not crazy over there, but maybe it was under control crazy. And then at 5 o'clock Saturday morning, man, Brady was telling me that there was like, you know, wadded up. The Santa Anita is a horse track here, and they had stuff going on for families, and it was like Hat Day or Big Hat Day, something like that. Derby Day, I don't know what the hell it was, but yeah, I think it was Big Hat and Family Fun Day, and like all of their shit was blown all over, and then all of Brady's pop-ups were in all over the track and in the grandstands, and the horse trainers were upset because they couldn't train the horses, you know, warm the horses up in the morning before the races. It was chaos and destruction, but at least I got to have a beer, hang out with some good friends, and hear about it. And it's going to be this is another high. It's going to come back in May, and it's going to be, May will be beautiful weather there. So I got to take a drink real quick too. My God. Sorry about that, everyone. Oh, I am so thirsty. And this was too hot to drink earlier. I would have burned my mouth. But that's okay, because Dick and Tobor burned my heart. So, yeah. So that was it. That's my highs for this week. Hanging out, Kayla, you know, bike week, all that fun jazz. My lows. Well, one of my lows is that the Californian got canceled, but that's fine. My real low, and this one takes the cake, people, and I have only been seeing it more and more and more and more, and I don't understand it. Backing into parking spots. What is with that? What's the benefit of backing into a parking spot? I don't know if you guys can tell me. Okay. I used to work at a body shop, and sometimes you'd get vehicles in that were just completely trashed. You had to tear them down, or they didn't run. You know, they'd been smashed so bad. I'd get the old forklift out, and I'd have to wheel them into shops or skid them into the teardown area, right? Forklifts have this great mechanism called rear wheel steering. And it lets you turn super fast. And it's kind of crazy because it's kind of like when you back out of a parking spot, you can turn faster than if you were to back into the parking spot, right? So I think pulling in head first allows you to back out more sharply than if you took all this time to back in, and now you got to pull out in a wide arc, because you can't start turning really until the back of your vehicle clears the one next to you. Where when you're backing out, when you pull in head first and you back out, at least in my car, and I'm a good driver, so I'm not like you, I guess. You're terrible and you don't know how to do it. But I actually can start turning before. Like if you're good at parallel parking, you also know what I'm talking about. You can start turning before the front of your car has cleared. And why do you think they tell you to back into a parking spot when you're parallel parking? Because you get the ass of your car in there, and then you crank it and you slide it in. So that's the same thing. When you're pulling out of a spot, it takes less of a radius, and you don't have to block 2 lanes of traffic. So here's my deal. With the backing in. What is with backing in? You know, as Seinfeld never said, but I'll emulate him right here. when you back into a parking spot, this has happened to me 3 different times. People pass the parking spot, and I'm like, oh, cool. They're going out of the driveway or out of the parking lot. They must not be parking here. I'm going to pull into that parking spot. And then all of a sudden they slam on the brakes and throw it in reverse. And I'm like 1 foot behind them because I was going to turn into where they just passed. And it's like, oh, shit. And then you got 3 assholes behind you all stopping because the person went past. Nothing says I'm not interested in parking in that spot, especially in LA. If you're in a crowded metropolis, nothing says I'm not interested in that spot more than passing it. That is the universal sign for I am not going to park there because there's 9 other people waiting for that spot, trying to turn into it. Head first, I might add. So all these a-holes backing in, I do not understand it. You can't see if you're backing in. Of course, cars have cameras all over them now, but if you're backing into a blank wall, I've seen it happen before where it's hard to see even with the camera. How far away you are from the wall, your depth perception isn't as good as when you're staring straight out the windshield at something. I just don't understand backing in, period, for anything. And 3 times now it's happened to me where somebody has passed a parking spot. And even if I didn't want to park there, even if I was just leaving the parking lot with them, whoop, and then they slam on the brakes and throw it in reverse, turns out they're not leaving the parking lot. They're trying to back into this spot. And when they pull out, like I was saying, the forklift action really helps you just sprint out of a spot if you pull in head first. When you're pulling out now, first of all, when you're backing in, everyone stops and slams on the brakes, turns out into the next lane of traffic, and then turns it and backs it in. So it's not just parking lots that I've seen this happen on; it's the streets too. Some a-hole and they pull all the way to the left side of the curb or the right side of the curb, and I'm like, oh, they're pulling over to the curb. I'm gonna go by them now to get to my destination, and all of a sudden they're swinging out in front of me perpendicular, and I'm gonna T-bone them. Like, why the fuck did you pull over to the side of the road and then jut out across both lanes? Like, now I have nowhere to go. I'm slamming on my brakes. Like, what the? And they're looking at me like, what are you doing? Bro, when you pull to the side of the curb, like you are parking or pulling over to a destination, people will assume that you are at your destination. Then you pull out into the street, perpendicular to the street. Like, it doesn't make any sense. And why did you do that? Oh, to then back in to wherever you're going. So it's just something that's really been bugging me lately. And if you do it, I would like you to write creativewritingpodcast@gmail.com a lengthy description of why it's better. And I want some scientific facts. I don't want you to just anecdotally, oh, it's better. I want you to prove to me that it's better. Because when you're pulling out of that, it actually takes a wider arc. And now when these a-holes are pulling out of the parking spot, they have to take up both lanes too, or like take up the whole aisle of the parking lot to get out now, because they can't just crank the wheels and do a tight turn out. They have to like swing out. And so it's double trouble. And so I just don't understand it. And if you can do that, email creativewritingpodcast@gmail.com, lengthy description, scientifically breaking down why it's better. And I'll tell you what, a lot of places say don't back in. And there's a reason for that. I'm going to give you a counterpoint right now. You might write in and tell me all these great things. I'm going to tell you some a-hole misses running from the cops or something and comes into a parking lot hot, or is just driving like they're on meth or something. Guess what they're going to hit? They don't drive. If you're pulled in head first, yeah, they might hit the back of your vehicle, but at least you can drive away usually, unless it's smashed in. If you're backed in, now they're smashing the front of your vehicle. And guess what crumples easier, the back or the front? All I'm going to tell you is the front. The front crumples on every single car because it's designed to. It's designed to take the impact, the frontal impact, and disperse the load. So even big cars and little cars, you would be surprised at how jacked up just a little front end dinger will get you. It'll sometimes total your car. So when you're backed in, I hope that you enjoy knowing that if some idiot is cruising down the aisle drunk or getting a blowy or reaching for their phone while it's flopping around between their feet, and they smash into a bunch of cars and yours is facing head out, guess what? I don't feel sad that your car got jacked up. So anyway, email creativewritingpodcast@gmail.com with your lengthy thing, and I'll just send you something out of the box of junk. And we'll put this argument to bed. And I already know that you're wrong. But you can come at me and tell me why backing in is the ultimate. Let's make it out faster. Yeah, but it takes 3 times as long to get in. And so your time, really, overall time is not saved. You've actually made it worse for like 2 other people too, as you pulled past a parking spot, got someone's hopes up, and then you slam on the brakes and back in as they're already now in front of it, and now they have to tell the guy behind them to back up so they can back up to let you back in. You've wasted 3 people's times, including your own there, and it's totally unnecessary. So there, that's my lows for this week. Tobor, if you could get a sound effect to get me off of this, we'll get into some news, and I would greatly appreciate it. Let's hear it, baby. Oh boy. Well, that's great. That's exactly how I feel. So that's very appropriate. Let's get into this week's news with me, your host, Junk. Do you want some music for the news? I don't think we need no music. Tilbert, you got music? That's not music. That's a storm. Oh, it's a news storm. I like that, Tilbert. Thank you. That's good. All right, news storm. So listen, Stark Varg EX wins the 2026 Super Enduro Manufacturers Championship, marking the first time that an electric vehicle manufacturer has ever taken the title. So similar to Kayla Yakov making some news this week, Stark Varg making some news, I think a couple weeks ago. Hang on one more sec. I got to take a taste of this vanilla chai. A little bit of alcohol in here. I'm not even sure what I would put in here to make it better. I love whiskey, but I'm thinking like an amaretto might make this good. Yeah, I don't know what to go in here that would make it better. Maybe whiskey or bourbon. I don't know. Bourbon is a whiskey, right? Oh, shut up. Anyways, so yeah, Stark took the EV title, and that is the Super Enduro Manufacturer Championship. The Super Enduro is like the crazy stuff, and it was crazy to watch them power through and have riders finish. Dig this. They had, not only did they win the Manufacturers Championship, which I think Ducati is going to probably do this year in MotoGP, but they also had riders in the top 5. Let me see. So first is Billy Bolt on Husky. And of course, Billy Bolt is right behind Graham Jarvis as like one of the best, enduro riders ever. And then we have Johnny Walker, who again, right up there with both Bolt and Jarvis on his Triumph. So dig this, Triumph coming in hard with the... they just started making dirt bikes a couple years ago, and they're already winning the Super Enduros. Third place was Mitch Brightmore on his Gas. Fourth place was Eddie Carlson on a Stark Varg EX. And fifth place was Toby Martin on the other Stark Varg EX. So not only did they take the Manufacturers Championship, 2 of their riders finished in the top 5 overall for the season. So that's pretty sick. Stark also has actively been, as to my knowledge, one of the only electric motorcycles. They're as far as I know, they are the only ones that have been pushing for this stuff, for electric motorcycles to be allowed in racing for a couple of years now. And I don't know if they're the only electric manufacturer right now, but they are the one company that's been pushing the FIM for electric to be able to compete, and they've been winning. They've been gaining these. I wouldn't even call them concessions. I would just say, they're opening the door for other EVs to come in. So, and I know Honda. I know pretty soon, larger, traditional. ICE manufacturers are going to be coming in with electric stuff here pretty soon. So thank you, Stark, for opening the door for that. And on top of that, Stark also has, I should do a Toast My Bike. Their new street legal, I think it's the EMC. No, that's not what it's called. I think it's just called the Stark Supermoto or the Stark SM. It's a street legal like e-motorcycle. And that's exciting because people have been riding Starks on the road illegally on YouTube for a couple years now, and these bikes are just so incredibly powerful. So yeah, it'd be really nice to get a street legal version, and then let's see how much it costs. But yeah, Stark's doing a lot of great stuff lately. More in the news, Cody Kopp. Speaking of Daytona Bike Week and all the fun stuff going on there. Cody Kopp came out on top in the AFT Daytona ST1 and ST2, which is short tracks. Dallas Daniels and Davis Fisher round out the top three in the leaderboards in the Premier class. And it's just good to see that the Harley XG 750R, as well as some of the older riders that I still know, have made it back to flat track. I kind of, after 2020, it was hard to watch because not only because Indian was winning every single damn thing, but also, and I don't even have a problem with that. You know, a lot of people didn't like Formula One when Michael Schumacher was winning every single thing. And, I watch NASCAR because there's like at least, 6 or 7 different guys that win. Okay, great. Yeah. Dick's in the audio booth, and he said I sounded like him. No one can quite sound like you, Dick. You're one of a kind. But anyways, I digress. Getting back to this, it's crazy. I haven't really watched flat track in a couple years, at least a few years, maybe probably since 21 or 22. And it's because when they went away from like fans' choice and all this and that, it was kind of harder to get it if you didn't have cable and if you didn't have some sports package to watch it on. And now I have Peacock and I watch Supercross on NBC, but I don't know if AFT is on there too. I guess that's my bad for not knowing. But it just became harder to watch, I guess, is what I'm getting at. And for somebody that, doesn't want to pay for a sports bundle, like that's even harder. So I was looking at the AFT site and looking at the riders and where they're standing, and it was pretty legit to see, hey, Henry Wiles is still in it. And, everybody pretty much is still there. I remember like Kenny Coolbeth retiring, and I was like, well, this is like the end of an era. But I looked at the thing the other day, and I was like, wow, Henry Wiles, Sammy Halbert, Jared Vanderkoy, like the Baumans. I think literally everybody was there. I didn't see Corey or Shayna Texter, so they probably have retired. But like almost everybody else was there still, and like I said, Davis Fisher, he's still rounding out the top three. I don't think I saw, and I don't know, maybe this is bad news. Maybe a couple of people have passed or moved on or something, but there was a few names I didn't see in there. So maybe I won't shout them out who I didn't see. Somebody like, yeah, hey, hell, they're dead. But anyway, long story short, it was really cool to see some of these names still in it. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah. And I know officially, I believe, Jared Meese retired. And I did see him at AIM walking around. I'm 3.5 feet tall, and he's shorter than me. So it's pretty crazy. I almost didn't see him walking around. Let me see. What else? Blah, 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 blah. And the XG 750R, which is the street rod. And so it's very interesting. All this hubbub about Harley Davidson making some new bikes and having some new the little sprints and all the stuff we know is not going to come to the States and never happen. It is cool to see that they are still racing the XG 750R, which was, I know it's a race bike, but it was based off of the 750 street rod. So there's that. Maybe they'll bring it back one day. Maybe that'll be the air-cooled Sportster that we all want and love. Yeah, I heard a couple of people chattering about a some cafe racer thing too. Oh, Harley releases. They didn't release anything, folks. If you go to Harley Davidson's website and it's not there, did they really release it? No. And I don't even know who built that bike or who teased it, but it's not even on their website. Like, hey, look at this like concept we have out. There's none of that on there. So I don't know who built that bike that everyone's blabbing about. But they actually have Harley Davidson Racing. They're doubling down on bagger racing. They're turning everything into an ST, and that's what's on the website. So I don't know where you're seeing all this other cafe racer crap, but I don't think it's coming from Harley Davidson specifically. And don't want to be disappointed. That's how people get disappointed. Look at all this thing. And then it's like, yeah, they never did that. Like, or Roland Sands or, Thrash and Supply or somebody did something and people would drool over it. And they're like, that's not Harley Davidson. And then Harley Davidson might have took a picture for him. Or they asked Harley Davidson to pose in front of the museum or the headquarters, but that's not, Harley Davidson's not wasting money on that, especially in these financial times, folks. And last but not least for my news, and actually I have two things in the news, Josh Herrin won his 4th consecutive Daytona 200, becoming the only person to have done so. So this year's Daytona 200 was pretty sick. Not only did Kayla Yakov become the first woman to ever stand on the podium, Herrin is the first person to win 4 in a row ever. And then he also tied for victories with Scott Russell and Miguel Duhamel, or Duhamel, if you put it that way. So yeah. And then Tyler Scott on the Suzuki battled with Darren Binder, who I think Darren Binder used to be a Moto 2 guy, for a few laps before placing second on the podium. And then Kayla Yakov also battled with Darren Binder, only to pass him on the last lap, like right at the end, to become, of course, the first woman to podium at Daytona. And her emotional speech was pretty rad. And I don't want to keep banging on this drum, but I think she's going to be someone to look at for the next decade, in this next decade. I think she's going to go further than like Melissa Paris and Shalina Moreta and people like that did. I think she's going to, and I mentioned before, Anna Carrasco. I just have the feeling that Kayla Yakov is actually going to be, known in like 20 years from now. They'll be like, oh yeah, I remember her. She was really good. All right, the last bit of news comes from my town. I love my town. It is so fun and small, and like my wiener. And they do like a weekly or monthly, I think it's weekly, like a crime. You can read the crimes. So on the news this week, I thought it'd be fun to share a fun little crime. This one happened a couple weeks ago. 6:30 p.m. There was a petty theft, vandalism, and resisting of arrest. It resulted in the suspects being arrested. And it says the details are at 6:30 p.m. a caller in the 3300 block of South Peck, which we all have that street, reported 2 subjects inside a closed business. Officers arrived and the subjects fled on foot. When they saw the officers, a brief foot pursuit ensued, but ended when both subjects jumped in a lake. The subjects walked out of the lake and they were arrested and taken into custody. So there you go. That's the news from my part of town. Subjects walked into a lake, got away for about 3 seconds, and then turned around and walked back out and said, arrest us. And they were taken into custody. And that's that. So now let's get into the next segment. And we'll be right back with some more creative writing as we transition to the next segment. I don't know why I need to say we'll be back.
If ugly bikes were a crime, you'd be in jail. Yours should be cool, but it's an ultimate fail. You think your ride's awesome, it's a huge piece of shit. That's only my opinion, but it's totally legit. I'm saying what your friends do when you're not
time for... Actually, I meant to change the lyrics of this, and Tobork, you could help me. It's getting too late in the studio now. We're going to have to do this at home in the home studio, but I wanted to change this to toast my bike instead of roast my bike because we're not talking about how terrible bikes are anymore. What kind of a podcast do you think we are? Moto or Wheel Nerds? Hell no. We're all about the good stuff on this podcast. And Toast My Bike this week, it's going to take over basically like what's looking creative. So some days it may be a roast also. But yeah, you know what I was thinking? Harley Davidson has been in the news a lot lately. A lot of people complaining and blah, 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 and this and that. Nobody can keep their mouth shut about anything anymore. So I said, you know what I can do? I'm going to talk about Buell, the Buell Super Tourer. I don't know why this thing looks like so much fun to me, but the Buell Super Tourer just looks like a real kick in the pants. I love the front end is kind of interesting, and it really did grow on me. And now I kind of love it, and I think it would look silly any other way. And I just like the whole color scheme, and maybe it comes in more than one. I've only seen it in one, and it's very dark with some teal accents. I just really liked it. And yeah, I thought, this is the kind of thing that like makes a lot of sense. It's just it's got, just a unique, there's nothing else that looks like it. And it's really cool and it looks like it performs. And of course it's a Buell. They've been around since Eric Buell went out of business for the second and third time. I don't think the motors actually changed. I think just what he had to change, the company changed. So this motor has been out there for well over a decade now. So I think it's got a proven track record. And I just really like the way that the Super Tourer looks. And if I had a truck full of money just crash into my house and I could take some and it wouldn't be traced, I'd grab a Buell Super Tourer. Looks pretty awesome to me. All right. Now we don't really need music, Tobor, but if you want to give me some, I won't yeah, it's kind of sexy for me, ain't it? Where's the volume on this? There we go. Turn down just a tab because I feel like I'm not coming in very loud anymore. I don't know what's going on with the studio tonight. Dickman, I know this is going to be an awkward edit and not come in right on the beat, but that's fine. I had to, I thought I figured out the audio here, but I honestly didn't. So anyways, yeah, so what is going down is that we have some bike updates. We don't really have any bike updates. I haven't done much. Here's my bike update. You ever do that thing where you're like, oh yes, I am like just fired up and I'm going to go do this thing or that thing. And then you start to do it and you're like, this is terrible. Like, I did not realize I was going to have to do this and this and this and this. I've been thinking about that all day for the last couple of days and how as a mechanic, you can't have that luxury. You got to do the painful crap that you got to do. However, the nice thing is you probably have every single tool in the world or close to it to just get it done quickly and efficiently. And I have like 60% of the tools. So I'm going to do it at 60% the pace, and this is going to suck the whole time. Whereas if I just had like the 100% of the tools, and actually now that I think about it, did I do this wrong? Yeah, I might have attacked this hardware wrong. I might have need to look at it a different way. But anyways, long story short, on this bike update, we have a few minutes here to talk about it, but I don't want to take that long, is what do you do when you're like, oh yeah, gung-ho, I'm going to go in and rip this apart and do this and that. And then you start and you're just like, yeah, it's a lot of work actually, and I am finding out, I only have one relatively modern bike and next year it's going to be 10 years old. But when everything else is from the 80s and there's minimal crap, 80s or 90s, it's insane how much stuff is on a fuel-injected modern-day bike and try to keep it look nice. And you know what I'm saying? Like that's half of the sales is the way it looks. Really is like, the perception and the styling is a huge part of how, I'm never going to have to do this and that. Yeah, but somebody will. So they don't care. If you got the bolt underneath something and you have to take apart half the frame to get to that bolt, then so be it. I don't have to do it, right? So that's my current, just with everything. And I don't know if it's the weather changing or haven't been real hot here for the past couple of days. And it's just harder to commit to something when you're like, no, you're going to be hot and miserable. I don't know what it is, but I've had a really hard time committing to just doing stuff on motorcycle. I like to come out and look at them, and in my head, it's like bench racing, and go, oh yeah, all I got to do is do this and do this and do this, and then I'm just going to whip out the tools. It's a 5-minute job. Whip out the tools and look. Holy crap! There's 9 brackets that I have to take off first before I can remove this one freaking bolt. How is that fair? And it's not. It's really because the OEM went out of the way to make this motorcycle look super, nice and tucked in without wires hanging everywhere and like hardware showing this and that. So when you see these things on it, when you're fixing it, what a pain in the neck. So yeah, that's my 2 cents this week is you ever get into something and then look at it and decide it's a little bit above my, even if it's in my pay grade, it's definitely out of my desire grade right now. And I'm going to go, watch some chimpanzees on TikTok breakdancing or something. So yeah, that's kind of how my bike updates have been. I see all the stuff I need to do. I look at it and in my head I do it. And then in reality, I go back in the house and get another drink of water and lay down for a nap because it's disgustingly hot and I don't feel well. So yeah, that's my bike updates. Boodly-bada-boo. Now, let's get into something that I should still really make a nice piece of music for. Let's get into this this week with She Knows Moto. Hey everybody, welcome back to our segment with She Knows Moto. We're talking to Narissa today, and she's got something that she wants to share with you. She knows Moto, we should too. So Narissa, what you got on the plate for us today?
Hey everybody, I've got a fun little topic today. Something that a lot of people like to ask. Rich or lean? What's better?
Yeah. Who is Rich or lean and where is he born and where did he come from? What are you talking about?
Where did he come from? Where did he go?
Rich or lean? Who even knows? So what are you talking about when you say rich or lean? I don't get it.
So breaking down rich or lean, that is referring to the air to fuel mixture in your engine. So basically, if you kind of go back to high school chemistry, I know that might be kind of a traumatic time for some people, but in that class, you may have learned about the combustion reaction. And through that combustion reaction, like in an ideal world, it says that there is a certain amount of air that pairs with a certain amount of fuel to create the perfect blend for this combustion. It's called a stoichiometric ratio. So the ideal stoichiometric ratio is 14.7 grams of air to 1 gram of fuel. And that perfect blend means it's the best of power and efficiency, right? Okay. It's like the most balanced trade-off between those two.
This sounds like some real nerd stuff, but if I remember correctly, is 14.1 the weight of the atmosphere at sea level too, or something like that? Or am I off on that? Where did they get that ratio? Now, welcome to a half an hour episode that was only supposed to be 10 minutes.
So if you actually go through the chemical equation, right? Like if you remember balancing chemical equations, it's like so many carbons on the left side have to equal the same amount of carbons on the right side and blah, 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 right? You cross over and do that balance. When you do the balance in an ideal situation, it results in 14.7 units of air to the 1 unit of fuel, right? And air is made up of like lots of things.
Oh, yeah.
Like in the ideal combustion equation, it's just oxygen, O2, but it's also like nitrogen and all these other stuff too. And then fuel is primarily carbon and hydrogen. So when you balance all that out, this is kind of not super important to know.
I was going to say, you said, when you know this, and I was like, Narissa, I did skateboarding and when everyone else was doing chemistry class, I don't know this, but now I do. So thank you for walking me through that. It makes a lot more sense. I never knew where they got all these ratios, lambda and stoichiometric. I was like, where did these come from? And it's starting to make sense. We need people like you in this world to
know this stuff. So thank you.
Oh, well, good. I'm happy to share.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So that the 14.7 to 1 comes basically from the chemical equation for
Right.
a combustion reaction.
And it's
and
not
you
combustion. It's not combustion ratio. It's not compression ratio. It's
Right.
It's something totally different. So yeah.
Totally different. Yeah, and you mentioned lambda. Lambda is kind of analogous to stoichiometry, but people say stoic.
Hell yeah,
It's just
stoic.
the inverse of it. So lambda is the term that's actually used in things like engine mapping. It's just like a scientific term, but it
Yeah.
kind of refers to the same thing. So
love it.
anyways, when your engine is running lean, that means that the balance is shifted towards air. There's more air than fuel to have a perfect balance. When it's rich, that means there's excess fuel compared to air.
Okay. How do we get
So-
there? How do we get more fuel or more air?
Well, it depends what kind of bike you have. If you have a carbureted bike, there's often a screw. It's called your mixture screw, right? That is regulating how much fuel is being let in per the air that's passing through the carburetor. Very somewhat simple kind of mechanical device. Modern bikes that use fuel injection and mapping, it's a bit more complicated. And those 3D maps, that's kind of what I want to talk about. Those 3D maps that engineers or tuners somewhere are developing, they're typing in certain lambda values and telling it whether it should be rich or lean, depending on where they are in the map. So back to the question people ask, what's better, rich or lean? The answer is, it depends. There's
Dang
no,
it.
right? There's no one right answer
Oh,
because these maps, they're actually like 3D maps that are looking at things like the engine speed or like what kind of load the engine is experiencing, like what's the demand from the rider and whatever. Lots of factors that go into it. So depending on where they are on this map, some areas of the map may be a little bit lean, some may be a little bit rich, some may be right at stoic. It really depends on the conditions that the motorcycle is in right there. So that's not the answer that most people want because they want a straightforward answer, like, what should I do? Right?
yeah, because I want to do my bike, the one that's the goodest. And it's like, well, it depends.
It depends, for sure. So really, the correct answer is if you are going to be doing any tuning on your motorcycle, either use a tuner that already has some limits set in, because if you don't fully understand the physics and the chemistry of what's happening inside your engine and you go beyond the limits, bad things can happen. I'll talk about those in a second. But a lot of tuners will have like some safeguards and be like, I'm not going to let you go richer than this in this region because bad things will happen. So that's kind of a nice feature of a lot of tuners. Or you actually pay somebody who understands all this, like a tuner at a dealership, for example.
Yeah.
They understand what should be what, depending on what you're trying to achieve, right? So,
And when you're talking a tuner, do you mean the actual device that you can stick in your, control unit and manipulate with your phone? Or are you talking about like somebody that's tuning your bike?
Both. So the word
Okay.
fits for both. Like, so
Right.
when I say like, if you have a tuner and you're doing
Yeah.
it, it's the physical device that you would plug into your bike. And then when I say like a tuner at a dealership, that's a person who will then
Yeah.
put your bike onto something called a dyno, which a dyno like locks in the front tire, but then there's a roller underneath the rear tire. So it's basically like spinning your motorcycle and running it, but it's
It's like
stationary.
a rolling road. Yeah. It's like
Yeah,
simulates.
exactly.
Yeah.
It's a rolling road and they collect data and everything on it. So
You can see how crappy your horsepower really is.
right. So I talked about like there's extremes, right? There are certain bad things that can happen if you go too lean or if you go too rich. So just talking about lean, if you go too lean, meaning that you have way too much air coming in compared to the fuel, a pretty common issue is that your exhaust gas temperatures will start to increase very drastically.
Yikes. I hate when my exhaust temp goes up. My exhaust gases temperatures goes up.
Yeah. Not
You can
fun.
edit that out.
So when your exhaust gas temperatures get too high, things like the metal, like in your cylinder head around the exhaust ports can get too hot and it can warp, maybe in extreme
Yikes.
cases. The materials inside of your exhaust, especially like if you have a catalyst in your exhaust, if it gets too hot, that can damage those components inside.
If you have
not
aluminum
good.
dripping out the end of your exhaust, is that bad?
That's bad.
Oh, that's too hot. It's too hot.
It's not the flex you might think it is.
If Terminator 2 is literally standing behind you after you were rev bombing for 10 minutes, then you've done a bad thing. So.
Yeah. Basically, in general, if your pipes are glowing, that's not a good thing.
No bueno.
No bueno.
Now you tell me. Okay.
Right?
Well, fine.
Another indication is if you hear like pops from your exhaust, especially on decelerations, they call them engine pops, or they're called lean pops. That's another indication that it's running too lean in those situations. So that's also not good, because that's actually fuel that was not igniting in the cylinder in your engine. Instead, it's lighting off in your exhaust.
Yeah.
And the actual combustion event of fuel igniting is a very high energy, hot event. So you want that in the engine where it's actually doing work. You don't want it out in your exhaust.
Yeah. Can doing too rich do that too? Like excess fuel escaping through the valves and igniting in your, can a too rich condition also make pops like that?
You can have excess fuel going through your exhaust, and in some cases it could ignite. I don't think it's as common.
Yeah.
If you're very rich, like let's move over to the bad conditions with rich. If you're very rich, you're likely just like dumping fuel out the exhaust. In which case, you're increasing your hydrocarbon emissions into the environment, which most motorcyclists don't care about, but we love Mother Earth. So
I've heard that's a bad thing. Yeah.
It is a bad thing, but also you're just wasting that fuel.
Yeah.
Right. Like you pay for gas to move you. And if you're just dumping it out the exhaust, then that's just a waste of it, because like you have too much. So
far, 2 takeaways. Don't spew out aluminum out the exhaust, and also don't spew out gas out of the exhaust. You need it to be right in the middle there somewhere.
Yeah, somewhere in the middle. Now, rich, some people will often want their engines to run a little bit on the rich side because that can increase the power output. But going too rich is really like where the problem is, right? So if you have too much fuel mixed in with the air in your cylinder, it's not going to combust, or it's going to have like poor quality combustion.
Yeah.
So again, you're wasting fuel and like just sending it out the exhaust. Also, it can increase the carbon buildup inside of your engine, which can wear down your engine faster, essentially. And it can also foul your spark plugs, like basically get a bunch of gunk on the tips of your spark plugs so that they don't spark anymore. And if you don't have spark plugs that don't spark, you're not going very far.
Well, that's what I've heard. And it's getting them wet. I mean, you're like you said, if you're wasting fuel, it's going somewhere. So it's probably going on your spark plugs. They'll be all wet. And it's hard to light a fire with a wet match too. So yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so there's a lot of factors that go into it. And even like, the ambient temperature, for example, like cold air is more dense. Like there's more air packed into a certain volume. Therefore, you can add more fuel to it because there's just more to pair up with, right? So like when an engine does a cold start, it might like request a little bit more fuel.
Yeah.
And it's like all these like smart things that modern bikes are calculating instantaneously while you're running it. So there's a lot that goes into it.
And what about dumb bikes with carburetors? Is that why they have to have enrichers on cold days and choke cables? Is like there's not enough fuel getting in there to ignite. They need a little bit more because the air's colder, or got you. Okay.
Yeah. That's basically the concept. Yep.
And if you have like a bike that's running carbureted bikes, why do all the people in Colorado complain about it? And then, like, especially if they try to ride from Colorado to San Diego, why do they always complain about their motorcycles?
Yeah, that's elevation. So Colorado is, of course, a high elevation. And I think most people know that the higher you go into the atmosphere, the thinner the air is.
Okay.
So I talked about like how cold air is dense, the molecules are packed tighter, but in high elevation, they're spread apart further. So it's harder for the fuel to like find those air molecules.
Okay, so you need way more fuel because it has to if you put the correct ratio in there, it's not gonna. There's just going to be some that just doesn't pair up, so you got to throw extra in there. Is that what it is?
Well,
to get
it's like you would tune the bike like in a carbureted sense. You would tune the carburetor to handle that less dense air. So then you would find that perfect balance at that elevation. But
more
then
or less fuel. What works at higher elevations? More or less fuel.
Well, it's not necessarily more or less. It's about having the right ratio.
Oh, okay.
Right. So it's not making it more rich or more lean necessarily. It's just matching however many air molecules, because like there's less air molecules. So if you wanted to maintain stoic, you'd have to have less fuel. But it's about the ratio.
Right. Okay.
Right. So if you set it up to have a certain ratio at elevation, say you're on top of Pikes Peak, but then you come down and you have that same setup, you might have some issues because now all of a sudden the air is more dense because you're at a lower elevation. And the carburetor, it's not smart necessarily. It's not like auto recalculating. Like modern bikes with fuel maps will auto recalculate for the elevation. Like they can sense the amount of air molecules in the elevation, and you don't have to do anything. But with carburetors, you might have issues because it's just like a simple mechanical system, and your jetting might not be meeting that ratio anymore because all of a sudden you have more air molecules.
Yeah. So does that make you more rich when you come down out of the mountains? Off elevation?
If you have more air molecules coming in but the same amount of fuel, then you're actually going to be running more lean.
So that's why the guys always complain, is because they come down and they burn up their motors as they're coming out of color when they come down from the mountains. That makes sense. And it's almost like modern bikes have like smart sensors all over them that sense like oxygen and fuel pressure and air pressure and temps and all that stuff. So why do people love getting, exhausts that remove O2 sensors and catalytic converter? I'll never understand it, but I think they just don't think that it's going to affect the fuel ratio. The computer will take care of it, but it can only take care of it if it's got those other sensor systems in place, right?
Yeah. That's what we like to call a closed loop system.
There you go.
So it needs an input to calculate, and then it makes a calculation and it sends that data back to the sensor, and then the sensor recalculates based on that new data. And it's just like this continuous circle, but it's all happening instantaneously.
Right. Many times faster than I can even add 1 + 1. What is 1 + 1? Never mind. Well, I'll figure that out on a different show. That is, I love this. And lean versus rich and lean is always a carburetor guy's game to play, because like you said, there's a mechanical jetting, and it's almost like you can think of it not which one you want to be, but from this ratio. You really want to think about the ratio, and why, if it's going to be even temperatures, it sounds like. That's why I think on cold mornings, my motorcycles used to just go like a bat out of like a cut cat, and then on hotter days, they didn't want to run so good. I could tell the carbureted ones. I could tell. Yeah. And it's because I was getting that like compressed bang for the buck on that cold air.
Yeah.
Got you.
Yeah. So a little tangent here, but turbochargers or superchargers, what those devices are doing are basically compressing the air so that they can shove more air into the engine.
Yeah.
Right. So it then means you can add more fuel and then you get more power out of it. Right. So like cold air being dense, it's kind of a similar thing.
Yeah.
They call it like charged air.
Yeah. Right. And I think isn't nitrous to some effect, like nitrous might combust, but I think it also doesn't have an effect on the air as well. Like, does it let more fuel in also on top of being like more combustive, something like that? Like, I think that nitrous kind of does the same thing. I think it has a cooling effect.
It changes the combustion dynamics for sure. Yeah. It doesn't necessarily let more fuel in because that's the computer.
Right. Yeah. That's what I guess. It alters the ratio just because of its chemical makeup, right? So, and on a side note, because this doesn't usually apply to motorcycles, but maybe one day it will when they get windshield wipers. But which who knows, the Honda Goldwing might be working on this. But I had a friend that I used to race cars with, and he would use his windshield reservoir and like the squirter pump on his Mustang to do like, he called it cold air injection. And basically what he was doing was misting the intake to make it cooler, kind of like what you said, just to cool it just enough to hopefully get a little more air. I don't know if he ever did any math on it. He said he could feel it, but that's what he was trying to do, was cool the air and condense it or charge cool it without having a turbo or an intercooler or anything like that. He was just using the old cold air exhaust and then some cooler water that was coming out of his windshield washer reservoir. And so, I thought that was actually a sneaky way.
Some MacGyver kind of stuff.
Hey, it's got a pump. You just got to rig the pump to turn on when you want it to kick in. I was like, oh yeah, okay, totally
as
MacGyver.
Long as it's not too much water, obviously.
Well, water doesn't compress, right?
Yeah.
So
that's a bad day.
Would that be rich? Is that? You didn't fill your plug.
You better be rich to replace your engine if that's the case.
Exactly. Yeah, you sogged your plug up with water, my friend. Yeah. Well, hey, I learned about 7 new things, and I hope everybody did too, and got some real takeaways on this. And thank you for explaining carburation and fuel injection, because sometimes people will leave one or the other off. And thank you for putting it in mathematical terms rather than, do I want to be rich or lean? Because you're right. In the end, it just depends.
It depends.
And my last takeaway from this is I love the term stoic. It's kind of like if your last name was stoichiometric, but you were like the football jock, and so everyone just say, hey, stoic. So I was like, yes, I like stoic. I can get with this stoic thing. So
thank you for making the nerds feel cool.
Yeah, hell yeah, always. So get stoic, bro, and we'll talk to you next time.
See you on the flip side.
Good afternoon, everybody. This is Gary Canary with Sky 600 Traffic, and today we are flying over Phoenix. Today we're starting traffic off on Interstate 10. So if you're heading in from California, you can just turn right back around and go home. Don't California the Arizona, as they say. 10 eastbound, heading towards Sky Harbor International, is flowing nicely today. There's the usual backups off the Papago Freeway around the airport on Roosevelt and 24th, as well as Van Buren and Washington. If you're heading westbound on I-10 into Phoenix, be aware that there have been some recent road closures near the Satan Freeway and the 101. Did I pronounce that freeway right? I-17 is looking great in both directions. It would be a great day to head to that wretched attraction known as Castles and Coasters. Light traffic there. There's the usual surface street slowing around there on Peoria, and especially near Arizona's most popular Italian restaurant, Olive Garden, just near the Metro Center. A little back up there at the salad bar, if you know what I mean. Just past the mini stack interchange. Traffic is quiet on Red Mountain Freeway because who wants to go to Scottsdale, am I right? Hey, am I right? All right, well, looking south, there are some jam-ups on Baseline Road between the Amley Estates and Baseline Mountain Ranch. Just a little slow there as traffic figures out what it's doing. Also, further east on Baseline, traffic is really starting to slow down near the Target and all the golf clubs, no pun intended, even though that was a hole-in-one. Yeah. Nothing to report out west by the Salt River Wash between 7th Ave and Ed Pastor Freeway. That is Ed Pastor, right? Or South Mountain Freeway. I don't know. We're not from this area. We've been provided a map. So this is our first time here. The maps that the Air Service provides us are worse than the traffic, right? Am I right? So let's head back toward downtown. Hey, Steve, look at that black soil down there by the Poland safe. North and south, yeah. Oh, those are auto dismantlers. Oh, yeah, just look at that black dirt. I bet that's oil and years of caked on exhaust residue, rust, road grime, all that good stuff. What do you think would happen if we lit that up a little bit, Steve? find out. Oh, God, Steve, pull up. Get out of here. Folks, there's a huge toxic cloud floating over town west of I-17 near Westland Estates. I don't know how it got there. It definitely wasn't me. Visibility will be low, and there may be some volatile chemicals in the air. Please keep your windows up, people. Steve, get us out of here. Gary Canary and Sky 600 signing off. Back to you in the studio, Junky. Steve, get out of here. God damn it, get out of here, Steve. Oh, God, no.
Well, nothing says disastrous traffic like Gary Canary coming to us live from Sky 600 over Phoenix. I am so sorry, folks. I apologize. Yep. Now, time to get into the main story of today. Yeah, I've been eating Think bars. I've been eating these protein bars that have been making that happen. Tobor, thank you for recognizing that and pointing it out multiple times to our people that didn't know, unless they have a smell-o-vision. Thank you. Yeah, so let's get into the main topic here today. And my notes. So, the Battle of Utrecht, actually not the Battle of Utrecht, the treaties that followed the Battle of Utrecht and the War of Spanish Succession. I'm not going to get into it. You can do that on your own time, but I will tell you that they directly paved the way for England to become a powerhouse in the 1700s, which sparked the Industrial Revolution, and it spread from England. It kicked off. It basically helped to kick it off, and it reduced the rest of Europe's influence so much, and brought a peaceful time, which brought a time of population booms. We'll get into it. So the war, in 1714, I believe it was. Like I said, 10 years after the Duke of Marlborough kicked the pants off of the Franco-Bavarian forces there in Blenheim, which I think today is Blindheim. They changed the pronunciation of it a little bit over the years. But yeah, 1704 that happened, and 10 years later, the war, I believe, was ended with all these treaties where everyone said, yeah, we'll be nice and cool. And England was like, well, great, because now, instead of Spain and France being the massive chuds in the area, it's England. England came out on top. So good for England. One moment, folks. Hey, Tobor, I don't think there's anybody out in the front lobby, but I think, and Dick's gone. Dick left. I'm not 100% sure. We've never been here this late in the studio, but can you find out from somebody if it's normal to have rodents? I think there's a raccoon or a squirrel or something, or maybe a possum trying to get into the lobby area. I could hear something out there. Anyway, all right, cool. We will get back into our main topic here of the show. So yeah, basically this the battle that began all these treaties directly helped kick off the Industrial Revolution that started 20 years later, I guess it was, maybe 30 years later. In 1760-ish is when it starts to spread. Began largely in Britain around that time, and it spread to Europe and finally the United States around the 1840s. And the Industrial Revolution did a couple things. And you're like, well, the Industrial Revolution, isn't that great? Sort of. The Industrial Revolution kind of ended homesteading and town-dependent trades, and it kind of shifted things to work wage consumerism from sort of a family unit. And you can see this in other countries still. Like if you go to South America, or you don't even have to go to South America. If you go to some parts of Mexico, you can see this directly where the husband and wife kind of share a business together. They raise their kids up in it. Modern day ranching is a lot like this. And sometimes if you're still living in an agrarian part of the United States or any other part of the world, sometimes it can be like that, where the parents had the farm, the kids grew up on the farm. Maybe it's modernized. Maybe they're not out there with wooden pitchforks in their bonnets all day. It could very well be modernized, but it was a family business, and they each in turn required each other, and they were the labor, right? And so industrialization really took the family unit, maybe an autonomous family unit, an autonomous town, an autonomous population that were like really just dependent on each other for help and support. Think about the any early settlers to any area, and we'll focus on like the Pilgrims here in the States. They didn't have an economy. The Amish is another good one. I don't think they sell stuff to each other. They just kind of help each other, right? And so the Industrial Revolution changed all that, where you're not helping your friends and family. You are now a consumer, and everything's been socialized, and production moves away from the household, the trades in the village, to a city with factories, right? So bear with me. We're going to talk about this, why this ruined it for motorcycles. Eventually, people move to cities. You get collaboration. You get improvements in medicine, technology, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And you're thinking, why is this terrible? Well, it does a couple things again. It offsets the natural population control events. And a lot of time I've heard this said, although pestilence and plague really does spread more easily through cities now, it brings that as well. On that side of things, yeah, it's affected people, because what would wipe out a small village before has now spread through an entire population of a town. And so in some cases, bad for the village, but it was going to be bad anyway. And now it's bad for large swaths of humanity, right? And large population centers. So that's something that it did. And it also, killed little towns and killed trades and crafts industries. And you're like, oh my God, I thought that was just the 90s. No, it was the 1790s and the 1890s, and sure, the 1990s. Things are just have always been since the Industrial Revolution, more mass-produced factory stuff. The homesteading, the town economy thing is gone. And that's why you can have somebody working at a big company go to one state where nobody else is and still prosper. In the old days, that wouldn't have happened. You would have needed people there to support it. With technology, it's great. Eventually, the medicine also offsets, the advancements in medicine, social way of thinking, ideas, all of this stuff changes. And so, and is that a bad thing? You say, well, why? That brought us motorcycles. Yes, but we're going to talk about these damn wars and how they launched everything into that and how it affects us now. So keep with me here. Population booms now need secondary industries to support the population. Just look at modern day Las Vegas. That was once a tiny little getaway for mobsters in the middle of the desert. Now it was one of the fastest growing cities, actually, not largest, fastest growing city in the United States for a little bit there, right before the economic dump truck of 2008. So we're well over 10 years into this thing we're almost 20 years into this. Las Vegas should have dried up. COVID should have killed Vegas, but it goes up and down and it's coming back. And so why? Because now that there's all that stuff there and people are moving there for that stuff and the jobs and this and that, now people need to move there to support them. So that is also viable via the Industrial Revolution. It changes things. It changes populations. It changes social and popular interactions. It changes the way that societies and towns and everything functions. It brings us things, side quest. It brings us like, yay, school. Now everyone can live in the town and schools can get more popular and like socialized. And by socialized, I mean you don't have to be, everybody can go to school. The kids can learn. They don't have to be in a rich town, or they don't have to be in that one weird town with like the parochial schools. Like everybody can go to school now because there's enough people in this town to support a schoolhouse being built and hiring of a teacher to teach full time, make your kids smart and not, I would say lick lead paint, but they didn't even have lead paint back then. They were doing even dumber stuff than that, if you can believe it. So anyways, that all sounds great, but it also has its downsides. And the fact that the people that lived in these towns, do you think they made the money? No, it's always the people that runs the factories that makes the money. And now the industry, as it gets more mechanized, we have child labor, we have people dying earlier. We have people getting mangled. There's no OSHA back in those days. Oh, people were tough. Yeah, they were tough, but they had 4 fingers. And imagine, your wife comes home from the factory and she's only got 4 fingers and you're trying to give her a hug, but you've only got 4 fingers. You can see where these 4-finger families were headed, right? I mean, a life of misery and unfulfillment, both sexually, intellectually, and socially, and you had no teeth. So, I mean, there's that, right? So your mouth smelled like a compost bin. So there's all that happened because of that stuff. And you could have just lived on the farm with each other and helped each other out. So that stuff starts to happen. Well, what does happen too is, like I said, as thoughts come together and, you have more critical thinking in one area now. You can you don't just have to have that one person in the village that has like the good idea. And oh my God, and if nobody ever had any good ideas, you're just this dumb village. You have lots of people now with good ideas and they can come together and capitalize on that. And it grows and it makes everything great. Yeah, but it also makes everything change, right? And everything a little bit different. And so collaboration's great. Improvements to medicine start to happen because of this. You have more people to base your theory off of. Jane gets hives and dies in the village. Oh my God, Jane pissed off a god, or Jane ate the googleberry. You have no idea why Jane got hives and died. You guess. And then hope that somebody else doesn't do what they don't know that she did and also die, or the rest of your village die. In the city, you can have 5 different opinions. None of them be right, but you can still have them. And, that's the great thing. Medicine also started making people live longer. What's wrong with that? Well, what is wrong with that? It allowed people to wreck things faster, and the whole industrial complex allowed us to destroy things faster. So we're going to move into that. Advancements in technology continued to improve and continued to allow us to exploit the world that we live in, which we all know. Even farming too close to a forest. You got to have these buffer zones. People were like, no, we can profit if we get 1 inch for the forest. And if you look in the East Coast, there's some old plantations and farms that has still hundreds of years later wreaked total havoc on the natural environment around them, and nothing will grow there anymore for a long while because of the way that they potentially leach the soil of the stuff that the native plants needed, the way that they grew and didn't fallow fields, and now nothing can really grow there. And it's been hundreds of years and there's still nothing there except a big open field. Really interesting when you get into the science and tech of this. And it's all fueled by the Industrial Revolution, because you can industrialize the farm, and more people moving into the city means more people to sell to. And it's all that dollar, right? It's all about the dollar. Like I said, we're all consumers now. We're no longer little units working to help out the family or the village and make a craft. We're like part of the cog now. And so it really gets to this point. You can see where I'm going with this socially. What about the motorcycles, Junky? Stick with me, folks. We're only an hour and a half in. You can sip some coffee and keep going with me here. Eventually, animals are no longer needed for transportation. And you know what? To be honest, I was reading this story from my city, the city that I love so much, where people jump into a lake to get away from cops. And as late as the 1920s, people still had animals. And I know in Pasadena, there's this huge, if you ever drive through Pasadena, parts of the city has huge medians. And you're like, damn, this median is like a park. Until you get into old downtown where they've like wrecked everything. out in the burbs of Pasadena. And if you live here or have ever driven through here, you'll know what I'm talking about. There's parts of the median that are very wide, and you're like, damn, that literally is like grassy park in the median here, in between these two rather wide streets, and it's because there used to be a rail car, horse-drawn rail through the city before they had engines. And then when engines came and trains came and all that jazz, they did a little train through there. And then eventually when the hill caught on fire, even back in the 1800s, and the Mount Lowe Railway burned up, I think Pacific Railroad Company or Santa Fe bought all the railroads and said nothing can be built above. It was either Foothill or Huntington, which would become Route 66. So there's no railways up there. So they actually took the railways out from the median. But that's the last time horses were used. I mean, in New York in the 1900s, there's several pictures before automobiles crowded up the city streets. They were crowded with horses. So it hasn't been that long ago. Motorcycles were around when this stuff started to happen, but eventually people are like, we don't need animals anymore. A donkey to walk around the millstone and grind the mill into bread. Nope, we got windmills for that. We got water for that. And now we have engines and belts and pulleys. And you can look in the old factories of the late 1800s, early 1900s. It's amazing. Everything from the fans to the machines, to the conveyors, and everything that the assembly line was all powered by belts. It is so wild. Usually, I'm guessing either leather belts or heavy fabric belts, like canvas, hemp belts, stuff like that. And this belt and pulley system ran everything from sewing machines to, like I said, fans for ventilation to all sorts of stuff. And you would have this huge boiler down in the basement just churning out, powering a whole building. And just the guy down there all day sweating his ass off, tending to the boiler. And there would be a huge, gigantic pulley on it. There was just rotational mass, just kinetic energy stored up for days, and just like, oh my God, you could shut the motor off and the thing would still spin for half an hour probably. And that had a belt drive system off the pulleys, and it went up to the upper floors where the belts powered like I said, the sewing machines, the whatever it is, the punches, the assembly machines, the crafting machines, whatever the hell type of factory you had, all the machines are powered by belt, right? So that's the Industrial Revolution starting, and making humans obsolete at this point, right? And then machines take over most of human operations. 200 years after that Battle of Blenheim, or Blindheim, however you say it in modern day Bavaria, Germany, after you witnessed your cousin being blown in half by a howitzer or a cannon round, in 1901, Republican Vice President Teddy Roosevelt, he became president after President McKinley was assassinated. And by assassinated, I mean he was shot and he died a couple days later or a week later. It's not like he was assassinated like John F. Kennedy right there on the spot, or anybody else that's been assassinated pretty much for that matter. He was assassinated, and when he passed away a few days later, Teddy Roosevelt got sworn into office, and conservative Republicans had hoped that he wouldn't upset the system of balance between government and businesses that the conservative Republicans had been developing over 30 years, and which was basically that time since the Industrial Revolution spread and had brought prosperity and advancement to the United States. We're directly talking 30 years before Teddy Roosevelt is the 1840s, 1850s, and I guess it was 50 years before him, would have been 1850, but before he was president. But they had been working, it came there, it started to develop stuff, and then it takes a little while for policies to catch up. But for the last 30 or more years, they had been working with that, developing this prosperity based on the Industrial Revolution. Another faction of Republicans really hoped that Teddy Roosevelt would restore the progressive values that Abraham Lincoln had. Famously, Lincoln, abolitionist and progressive, trying to take America forward, and bring prosperity to the masses, and not just the robber barons and the business tycoons, right? That was what Abraham Lincoln was about. It's part of the reason that we had the Civil War and all that fun jazz. Roosevelt himself struggled to keep those parallel forces in check because he was dedicated to reforming social problems. He believed that, and all of his public service coming into being the president kind of focused and revolved around that. And he took a very long. I forget exactly what he did, but I'm pretty sure that he worked in the Park Service, or not the Park Service. He worked at a cattle ranch. I think he had a cattle ranch before he became president, and that's what he did after becoming president as well. He really loved nature, and I forget exactly what he did, but it might have worked for like some game or fowl company. But there wasn't a lot of stuff established when he became president. And so he loved the outdoors, and this is going to come in another episode in a couple weeks, so I'm not going to shit all over it here. But just so that you know, he struggled to keep these parallel forces in check because he wanted to reform social problems, and growing industrialization was not necessarily good at solving them, as it focused on wealth over all else and probably created more social problems. He also did not want to, go back on the prosperity that industrialization brought the United States. So for him, it was a really hard presidency. And while we're not going to go into it and his policies, it should be known that the Industrial Revolution was a direct cause of his development of labor and commerce regulatory bureaus. So he did start those. I think he probably helped, unions started. He probably helped get, I think it was Teddy Roosevelt that helped get child labor to be recognized as a thing and get some regulation over businesses. He didn't want to stymie them or stifle business, but he did want some regulation because he was sick of these two people aforementioned by myself that would come home at night with only 4 fingers apiece and no teeth because they worked all day in the factory and got their limbs ripped off to try and then kiss and make some more new babies to work in the old factories when they both were disgusting human beings that probably had black lung. So he wanted to fix that. Roosevelt also, like I said, he'll come up in a further, maybe next episode as we talk about his creation of the National Forest Service, the National Park System, and his love of nature, which he believed should be kept from private ownership so that the general public should be able to recreate, and the native animals that were also being eradicated and pushed out of the cities due to industrialization would have a place to live. This guy was thinking way forward thinking when it came to that sort of stuff. And now fast forward to today, and humans embrace technology. We can't live without it. I mean, we always joke about it, but there's going to be no day. Tomorrow will be the next best day. Today was the best day that it could have been. And it sounds funny saying that now, today, knowing what's going on today. Look back in history. If you're listening to this 3 years from now, look back at what was going on in the first couple days of March 2026. I didn't think we'd be where we are today. But so people embrace stuff. And people have embraced technology, and now we almost can't live without it. And there's lots of things. Hey, can you remember a phone number? Because guess what? Your parents could, and their parents could, and now you can't even remember, 2 of your friends' phone. Or you don't even know your friend's phone number because your phone knows it, or your computer, your device, whatever it is, whatever country you're coming to us from. We're getting dumber as humans, and we're not only are we embracing technology, but we are giving up some of our human autonomy, and it's all just another industrial piece of the Industrial Revolution. But Junky, what about the bikes? Okay, now we're getting to, you stuck around with me for 10 or 15 more minutes. Now we're getting to the nitty grit. So, we embrace technologies. And let's just say, as of today, there are so many data breaches where our entire life is online. We have cars that have full self-driving capability, and they can do it, regardless of what regulatory body says they can or can't be allowed to. They literally can. It's like saying, hey, you're not allowed to kill somebody. You legally aren't, but technically you can. Like you make that choice, and it is against the law, but you still could do it. That is how we are right now. Full self-driving. Everything is automated. AI is becoming not just AI. AI is making some pretty terrible things, but it's here to stay. And it was the buzzword for the last 10 years or so. And now just last year, it made a huge leap into every corner of the American and global, actually, not only the psyche, but it's popping up. You can't even open photos on your precious little phone now without having an AI thing pop up. And hey, look, I can help you sort by type in, my favorite dog, and we'll pull open the picture that you looked at the most times of your dog, blah, 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 blah. It's crazy. It's crazy times. And we're embracing it. Some people can't wait for the next bit of tech to come out. And so cheap technology replaces the need for repair on things now as well. We don't have very many craftsmen. Everybody wants to be in the service industry. Why? Because 200 years ago, or going on 300 years ago, actually, we switched from a production to a consumption model slowly but surely. And now we are fully in it in 2026. Robots can replace modules. Robots can do a lot of things, and robots actually do. And a robot nowadays is a physical robot, not a bot that you might think of when you're thinking of something that does an action for you on your computer. So we need to make that distinction, because now there's another a robot called the humanoid, which is going to help people, no longer be awkward and lonely, because there'll be sex bots living with you. People probably are already screwing the bot that's supposed to be, putting the dishes away or hanging up a towel for them. I know how people are that buy these things. So robots can replace people. Robots can replace transportation. Full self-driving can replace transportation. And eventually, the risks of motorcycles as transportation removes their viability, and as all vehicles transition to full self-driving. Because why would you need... If we have full self-driving now, why don't we just make every car have full self-driving? That's like saying, some cars have headlights and it's great. Well, let's put them on every car, because why not? Every car needs to be able to see at night. No, they got radar. Well, the people need to be able to see. Let's just put headlights on every single car. Sure. Even if they don't need it, sure, because the people inside need it. So full self-driving, I feel like that's going to be the same thing one day. Hey, this car can do it. Like, it's a technology. Why are we wasting it on putting it on only certain models or luxury models when we could put on every model? And so eventually I think it's going to be, and it drives better than humans. It doesn't ever fall asleep. It has a better judgment ratio. And sure, there's still crashes, but it doesn't kill 46,000 people a year or whatever, right? That, I forget what the statistic is up to, but it's been going up, so it's kind of crazy. It was going down for a long time. So just think about it. Human automobile deaths are, let's say they go down. I mean, they're still going to happen because people are still going to also walk in front of cars like pedestrians. So there's still going to be human automobile interactions and deaths. But let's say it goes down to less than 0.1%. That's still a few thousand people every year, but it's tiny, right? Compared to what it is today. Medicine also increasing lifespans on top of everything becoming industrialized and safer. That creates a little bit of a weird dynamic. And then, thanks to the Industrial Revolution and and the consistent improving and doubling of the world population, there's no longer needs for humans to travel very often. And the world population has doubled insanely. When I was looking up this, straight up causes from the effects from the Industrial Revolution, I think it said it took like 500 million years. And that's not right, because humans aren't even that old. I forget how long it took for the world population to double. But once it did, it took only like 100 years to do it again. And then it took like 50, then it took like 17. And now like the world population literally, I don't even know how fast. It's like single digit years, like, I don't know, 7 years that it doubles after staying unchanged for hundreds and thousands of years. It can double within like a single digit range, 9 years or less, something like that. And that number might be totally fabricated, but it's not. I'm telling you, it's not too far off. And the way that if you just kept cutting those numbers in half, the way they did, will be a reality if it's not already. So might be incorrect, but I'm not making it up. Thanks to the Industrial Revolution for all these things that we were talking about, how they're making medicine better. They're extending people's lives. So of course the population is going to rise. We're going to need more and more things. You know, what's going to be a priority? These stupid transportation car things and motorcycle things? No, because there's going to be so many people that we'll just live where we work again, but it'll all be online. You know what I'm saying? It'll go back to we'll still be consumption units, but all from our house. And when things become full self-driving, everything becomes full self-driving. We already see it now. Motorcycles are getting the trickle-down technology today that is coming from cars, like automatic braking and radar cruise control, radar collision detection. There's a lot of stuff that is trickling down to motorcycles, and ABS and fuel injection was the least of the technology. That was the tiniest thing. Two of the best, but the tiniest. And now they're like on everything, like the Honda Dax, Honda Monkey. Those things have IMUs on them and ABS, at least on the front, so that you don't flip over the handlebars because of the short wheelbase. So it's very, very interesting where things have been heading, whether you realized it was headed that way or not. So basically, humans just need to tend to the machines, and a few smart ones will develop this overarching architecture for us to control the machines or interact with them. Those are going to be the people like the Bill Gates and Terry Blanchfield. No, I forget the guy's name that helped found Microsoft. Steve Jobs and what was the other guy's name? Ellen Schmisselbaum. Whatever their names are. You know, the guys that created basically like the stuff that works with the internet today. And all the people that developed the internet back in the 60s under DARPA, all those people, there'll be these smart ones that develop this architecture that controls us. And then when they die, the machines will run the show. And when the machines run the show, all thanks to the Industrial Revolution, all thanks to this damn battle back in Blenheim and the Treaty of Utrecht, we will probably see motorcycles becoming either obsoleted because they are just a form of enjoyment, and at some point they won't be any more efficient than like some very small city taxi type vehicle. Think of a Smart for Two right now, or a K vehicle if you're in another country. It's hard for us Americans to think about little cars, the practicality of them, especially the further inland you go away from the coast. Maybe in Austin, maybe in Chicago, maybe St. Louis, but go anywhere else in Texas, Illinois, or Missouri, and you'll be laughed out of the city. But I am telling you that once the city sprawl, little cars is going to be where it's at. You know, a little K car with an electric motor might be all you need to get around. You're never going to need to leave town anymore unless you're going on vacation. And guess what? You're going to take a train or a plane, and you're not going to have to wait in line for 42 hours like you did this weekend for whatever reason why people had to wait in line right now. I don't know why that is. I have a feeling it has to do something with the war and TSA and approving. I have no idea, but it just seems like too much of a coincidence that we're in this conflict right now, and everybody from gas stations to airports is just like in these huge lines paying exorbitant amounts of money. I don't understand it, but the machines do, and they might. And they might be able. What are we gonna do? Make people think faster to get these people through these lines? No, we're gonna automate shit and get machines to do shit and get these people through these airport lines. Take care of your thing at the DMV, so you don't have to worry about talking to some schmutz that doesn't know what they're talking about. Like, I'm telling you, everything is gonna get automated, and what that's gonna do is make it illegal for things that aren't automated, and that's gonna mean motorcycles. And we're not even going to be able to affix a little transponder on there. They're just going to be like, listen, guys, 40 years ago, motorcycles were cool. But you know what? 40 years before that, yeah, some people still like took a horse as a novelty into town, 40 years before that, it was the standard. I mean, we were still in horses. The cars hadn't been invented yet. So do you see where the thing's going? And you're going to be like, yeah, I see it. And they're going to be like, yeah, so you really don't need motorcycles anymore. I mean, there's plenty of other flying hover shit that's fun for you. So, yes, the 1713 Treaty of Utrecht did this to us because it opened the door for all of this to happen. And with that, we're going to take a quick break and come back and finish this goddamn show.
You just take I-25 to exit 235, then it's 2 miles east to the Wing Shack.
Wing Shack, now serving the Carbon Valley off Highway 52 and Colorado Boulevard in Dakota.
Creative Riding is brought to you by Millman's Chocolate Chips. Millman's for long-distance truckers and motorcyclists on a long road trip. Millman's features enriched cocaine and skink pheromones. Millman's I Killed a Ninja. Millman's Chocolate Chips.
Hey, this is the Beastman, coming at you from GSXR 600 FM The Squid. We've got creative riding coming at you at the top of the hour, but first, the traffic. We have a yellow SV 650 down on the 405 and a high-speed police chase being led by an RC 51 over in Glendale. Chopper Dave says the bike looks pretty cherry from his vantage point, but may not be so sharp from up close. Anyway, here's an oldie from Tilford Cellars featuring a little-known steel guitar player named Moto G. Pete's.
When the bright light of the city
All right, everybody, that is our show. Thank you for joining us. We're going to leave you with some events. If you head over to, don't go to the Creative Writing blog. The end of March, I'm going to go ahead and tell you, is going to be, there's going to be something special. If you know Brady Walker, get in touch with him. And if you're planning to race the Biltwell 100 this year, get in touch with Brady. He's got a little treat for you there. Also, if you are going to be going to the Californian, that is going to be back up again in May. So keep your ears peeled and your eyes posted for that. I will also, of course, let you know. I will let you know and keep you informed on that as to what's going down. Also, March 22nd is going to be the SoCal Cycle Swap Meet at Long Beach at the Veterans Stadium there. And March 27th through 29th, Ducati Island's going to be happening in Austin, Texas as they return with the Red Bull Grand Prix of the Americas. That's going to be also March 27th through 29th. If you're at Brady's house, you get to do a little training for the old Biltwell 100 and then watch some MotoGP footage later that night over some steaks. I don't know. I shouldn't say steaks. I don't know what he's planning on cooking. Also, we have Born Free is going to be coming up here pretty soon. That's going to be this summer here out in Silverado Canyon. And I don't even know what that's up to yet, but and I believe the One Show is coming up here pretty quick as well. And that's it. If you have an event that you want me to list, you know how to get in touch with us. Please do me a favor. If you want to support the show, you can check us out on Patreon. Our blog is at creative-writing.com. We are also, the Moto One Podcast Network is represented at motorcycle-podcasts.com. You can always find a link to our Discord in the show notes. Email the show, creativewritingpodcast@gmail.com. Come at me with that parking in backwards crap, and maybe you'll get something out of the box of junk, or maybe I'll send you a box of scorpions. And then also, if I said the word of the week, email the show, and our links to Facebook, Reddit, and Patreon, and our Zazzle store. We got a couple things up on our Zazzle store. We make about 23 cents, but at least it gives you something to enjoy from the show. So with that, we are out of here. Thank you so much. Thank you, Tobor. Thank you, Dick Buttman from the Tucker Tanner Will Spin with Tucker Tanner show. And thank you for tuning in and listening to me blather on about things like, thanks, Industrial Revolution. While you did give us greater and more refined machining techniques, you also took so much away. And next week, let's talk about Teddy Roosevelt. He was all for animals. He was all for having public places being available to us and being allowed to recreate on them. And right now, in Jawbone Canyon, if you don't know the story, and through the Beautiful Bill, actually, there have been a lot of attempts to take away some of this public land from us, and as motorcyclists specifically, and stop how we are recreating. So we might get into that. Let's do some more talk about Teddy and motorcycles on the next episode. Peace, Grease. Tell your niece. Put away the fleece. Head down to Greece. Oh, please. I feel like a goblin.